Okay, I'm going to be showing you how to animate a waterfall with Photoshop. Okay, so we're going to take a still photo like this one and make the water look like it's coming down. So if you want to see what the result looks like, skip to the end of the video. I'm going to start from scratch, and uh, this will be easy one and this will be an easy one. Could also do this one, but I don't recommend doing, well, this one you can't do because the water's too smooth, so don't choose a photo like that one. This one won't work either. Alright, so I'll just pick this first image here and let's download it in 1920 by 1440. Let's drag that into Photoshop. Okay, so I've got my timeline open here. That's what you're gonna need to use to animate this, but I'll close it for now. So the first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab my quick select tool and need to select the waterfall. Okay, selected the waterfall. I don't need this bottom part, so with the lasso, I'll hold the Alt button and deselect it. Okay, and I'm gonna press Control J, which should duplicate this onto its own layer. And um, next, we're gonna convert this to a smart object. Uh, Actually, let me open the timeline first. The reason why we're converting it to a smart object is because when you create a video timeline, you open up a layer like this. You can see it has position, opacity, and style. We're not going to be um, animating position. We're going to be animating transformation. So in order to get a transform keyframe or stopwatch here, you're going to need to convert this to a smart object. Okay, now instead of position, it says transform. So let's look at how long the animation is. Right now the animation is 5 seconds long, which I think might be too long, so I'll shorten it to just 3 seconds. Um, and we're gonna set our first keyframe in the beginning by clicking the little stopwatch. And at the end of the animation, we're gonna say edit free transform and pull this down. And depending on which version of Photoshop you're using, you might have to hold shift or else it'll do that. So I'm gonna hold shift to pull it straight down and hit the check mark or press enter. And so let's preview it. That's what it's gonna look like right now. But we don't want to see this coming past uh, down here. So easy way to stop that from happening is to create a layer mask. Okay, and make sure you disconnect the layer mask from the layer. So unlink it by clicking that little um, chain or whatever it is in the between them to unlink it, and then on the layer mask we're gonna paint black down here, maybe a little bit over here too, so when the water reaches that we don't see it anymore. Okay, so now when I press play, I think I still need to do a little bit more uh, or actually instead of, I think it's fine, maybe a little bit here, but I also think Originally when I cut this, if I made it a little bit softer down here, oops, the eraser, that also might help a little bit. So let me just go into the smart object here and soften that. Okay, and smart objects you can edit by double clicking on them, and then you close it and save it, and it updates. Okay, might go a little bit higher with this uh, mask over here. Oops, I was on the eraser. Make sure you're on the brush. Okay. Alright, so let's play it. Alright, that looks better. There's also like a mist that's supposed to be in front of it. So erasing more of that will reveal more of that mist. Okay. Alright, so that looks okay so far. I just need to make sure um this top part in the beginning it's up there, but when you go down you can see it kind of came down a little bit, so gotta make sure pull that back up to where it should be. Um Also there are parts that kind of ruin the effect when you see them, like right here. Oops, this edge here. I don't really want to see that, so I think I'll mask that out as well with a soft brush. Okay, that's a little better. Also, there are some areas like here that kind of stick out too much, so I'll get rid of that. Actually, instead of getting rid of it by masking it out, I think I'll go back to the original photos by double clicking the smart object and just erase that part. It just sticks out too much. And close this, say yes, and also the original photo. I don't want to see it there either, so gonna mask it out. Also mask out this area while you're at it. No, we're not masking it. We're clone stamping it out. Um, so you need to alt click to sample an area and then click to cover another area. That should be okay. Alright, looks good so far. I see some jerky stuff happening. I don't know what that's about. I think I just need to move that a little further, but yeah, I think I need to lift this up a little bit more. Still coming down a little bit too much. Or is it? I can't tell. It seems to be coming down a little bit. So I'm gonna select that layer with the waterfall on it, and with my keyboard, let's nudge it up a little bit. Okay. So some jumpy things that are happening, but I don't think that's anything that I'm doing. I think that's just Photoshop being weird. Hopefully we won't be able to see that jerky movement once we finally export this as a MP4. There's no reason why it should be doing that because I only have this keyframe here and this one here, so there shouldn't be any other movements. By the way, if you have extra keyframes, like if you made a movement like this and you added one, you can pull it down, or sorry, select it and press delete to get rid of it. Okay, that's, I think some of that jerkiness stopped now. Um, Alright, next we need to loop the animation, and when we loop it, it'll also make it look a little better. So to loop it, we're gonna go to the halfway point. We need the animation to begin and end looking exactly the same. So I'm gonna cut it in half. Okay. So nothing's different yet. It's still, here's the beginning and here's the end. Here's the middle point. But in order to get it to begin and end the same exact way, we need this middle point to be the beginning and in the end. So basically now it starts and ends the same way, but the middle part now is where it originally ended and began. So that part there's going to be a jump. So we just need to transition that. Um, you could put these next to each other and add a crossfade, which will blur that part, but I think it's better if you do your own crossfade. And all a crossfade is the top layer is overlapping the bottom layer, and you set opacity um, where the next layer is basically start beginning to overlap, and towards the end of this one, I'll lower the opacity down to 0. And yeah, if you're one frame past the layer, you can't do anything here. So you gotta make sure you're on it. Bring that down to 0. Okay, and I'll just move that over. Okay, so that just did the same thing the crossfade did, but I can make this way longer. I could make the fade start right at the beginning, so um it's a more subtle fade this way. You don't notice it as much. Now there's still some weird jerky stuff happening, but again, I'm guessing it's just some kind of a glitch, or Photoshop's just misbehaving. So I'll ignore that. Okay. And maybe once we export this as an MP4, that'll stop. There's one more thing I want to do before I stop. I want to animate the mist. So let me hide these for a second. And I'm gonna select now some of this mist, and maybe not that. There's not too much mist in this photo. just a little bit, but I'll try to select the area that has some mist in it and duplicate that layer. Control J. Oops, went back to 5 seconds long. Let's cut that to um what is it now? Well, now we're down to like 1 second or a little more. We're down to a second and a half. Okay, so with this new layer, now it's kind of confusing because my layers are just layer 1, layer 2. So let me make sure I name these. So um, this is waterfall 2, waterfall 1, mist. Okay, so this is the mist. Um, the mist is gonna animate also with the transform, so I have to convert it to a smart object. And we'll go to the beginning. Um, let's make this 3 seconds again, because we're gonna have to do the same thing to it, cut it in half in order to loop it. So I'm gonna make it 3 seconds long. Towards the end, it's gonna get bigger. And I'm gonna hold Alt when I scale this so it scales from the center. Okay. And this needs to have softer edges. So I'm gonna create a layer mask for that one, disconnect it again, and select the layer mask, and with a soft brush with black selected, I'm gonna soften the edges. Okay, so now I'll cut that in half, clicking that scissor, and do the same thing I did with the waterfall, which is reversed, or remember we're gonna be doing our fade throughout the whole thing, so basically we're just bringing the middle to the beginning. And okay, so let me just do that one more time. So we've got our animation of the mist. We're gonna go to the middle point of it and cut it in half. Okay, so this is the midpoint. It's gonna start at the midpoint and end at the midpoint. So it's gonna be fading out the whole time. So right at the beginning, I'm gonna set opacity, and I'm doing this to the top mist copy, not the bottom one. So the one that's on top is gonna start with opacity 100 and it's gonna end with opacity 0, which should reveal the bottom mist. And just to keep it consistent, I'm gonna um, drag these out here. Oops. Okay. I don't think it matters. It could be here. I could probably put these here. It doesn't really make a difference. Alright. Now let's play it and see how it looks. Oh, and let's reveal these layers so we can see the whole thing together. Okay, I think it looks nice. And you could do things like maybe um, mask some of this and duplicate that mask onto the other one so they all so their masks are exactly the same. Alright, and right now there's still some jerkiness happening, but I'm hoping when I finally export this as a MP4 video, render video, hoping that won't show. Alright, so I'll just save this on my desktop, hit render. Okay, yeah, it looks like the jerkiness is just something that you see in Photoshop. It doesn't render with the jerky movement. And if I want to loop this, I'll think I have to say repeat here. But yeah, that's how you make waterfall animation with Photoshop.